Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Wavelength. The real issue with data privacy is who's collecting your data behind the scenes, so in the back end of it, and who is that being shared with.
Sparking the combos about Adelaide.
It's every woman's choice. If they choose to have an abortion, then so be it.
You should be having...
These issues need to be properly investigated, and we need to make sure that LGBTIQ people are supported to be who they are.
On Fresh 92.7.
Welcome to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Tonight, I am joined by one of our Wavo members who puts together the wildest stories we do here. Sam, how are you tonight, man?
I'm very well. I'm ready to spark some convos for Adelaide. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
There's been so much happening.
I know.
Ministers getting into trouble. We lost the grand final.
Yeah, what is that about?
That's
to Queensland?
bloody Queenslanders.
What?
We deserve that.
We do. We do.
Anyway, on tonight's show, soup, soup, soup. You might have seen stickers around with that phrase on it, on public transport, on utility boxes, on bins, anywhere really. But who's been putting them up and why? This week on Wavelength, I get to the bottom of the mystery and meet the Adelaide street artist that's got us all talking about soup.
I cannot wait for that one. We'll also be letting you know everything you need to know about the coronavirus. But next, Jamie will be chatting with the State Theatre Company about their first production since the pandemic started. You're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. COVID has really screwed up a lot of things in the world. Gigs and nightclubs are definitely not what they used to be. For one, I went to one last night and had to sit down. It was extremely weird. But for theatre goers, these last few months have been a cultural drought, to say the least.
Yeah, forget all that though. The State Theatre Company, they're back and they've got this production called Gaslight. Jamie spoke with the director, Catherine Fitzgerald, to find out more about the production.
Wavelength. On Fresh 92.7.
After a long and treacherous wait for the local art scene, the State Theatre Company South Australia are back with a vengeance as they hit the stage once again with their first performance since March lockdowns at Her Majesty's Theatre. With the debut of Patrick Hamilton's 1938 play Gaslight, this modern portrayal flips notions of class, gender and conventional roles on its head to bring this Victorian thriller into the 21st century. I speak with director Catherine Fitzgerald on the play, Her New Majesty's Theatre renos and what it's like coming back for Adelaide Theatre.
Hi, my name's Catherine Fitzgerald and I'm a theatre director, writer and sometimes actor, and I am a freelance director at the moment, sort of jobbing. You pay me, I'll do it.
Tell us about the play.
The play was written by Patrick Hamilton, who was a writer who also wrote Rope and a series of novels and other plays. He wrote the play in 1938, and this Gaslight is set in 1890, so late 19th century in Victorian times in London. The play essentially is about, well, it's about a lot of things actually. It's about class, it's about relationship between genders, greed and money, and it's an investigative sort of search for stolen jewels. It's got everything in it that you would expect from a thriller. At its essence, it's got a 19th century wife, Mrs. Manningham, Bella Manningham, who has no power whatsoever, no agency. So she's sort of meant to be obedient, acquiescent, pretty, and do as her husband, the master of the house, says. So that is a really clever setup in the sense that there's a woman with no power or agency, as in thrillers, and then her husband, Jack Manningham, is not a very nice man, but he's very compassionate when you first open. But then as the play goes on, you realise that she's living in a domestic violence situation. Clever in the sense, because of the time it's set, the domestic violence strategies are actually magnified. He hides things from her that allows her to have connection with the outside world. Patrick Hamilton was an avowed Marxist. He hated capitalism, he hated what it did to people, how it created poverty and inequality. So that's all sewn into the play as well.
Gaslighting and domestic abuse are dominant themes throughout the play. How is this play still relevant in today's society?
Oh, it's deeply relevant in that huge amounts of women living in domestic violence still, and a huge amount of women are killed. And I think especially now during COVID-19, there's huge concerns for people who are isolated, even more isolated, living with perpetrators of domestic violence. So it's actually hugely relevant today.
What has it been like for the theatre and arts industry this year during the COVID-19 pandemic?
It's been incredibly frustrating. It's also been incredibly hurtful, I think, in terms of how the government have not acknowledged what the arts industry or the artists themselves, the cultural sector actually add to the quality and vibrancy I suppose, essence of Australian life and lifestyle in terms of not acknowledging with JobKeeper artists that worked from, gig to gig weren't eligible. I think there was a real acknowledgement that the current government doesn't give a crap about the art. And there's been a lot of great adaptation as well of people actually moving from live theatre into sort of, Zoom theatre. There was a real, I think, proof that the arts are innovative and can adapt.
So you're doing it in the new Her Majesty's Theatre after the updates. Have you seen the space yet?
Yes, we went in there. I've been there twice since they've finished the renovation. It's really exciting. It's such a big theatre designed for electric music, rock and roll music, big musicals. So essentially we're putting a sort of playhouse drawing room set in the giant space.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about the show itself?
I think, the actors are doing a fabulous job. I think it's going to be a really fun night in the theatre, and I think it's going to be one of those shows that you can unpack after you've seen it, that you won't be sitting there going, oh my God, this is about domestic violence. You'll be sitting there going, what a cad. I think that will be driving the audience, and then at the end there's a fantastic payoff.
How long is Gaslight running, and where can we buy tickets?
Opening on the 4th, or previews on the 4th. It opens on the 8th and it's running to the 19th of September. You can buy tickets by going to Bass and booking online, and I'd suggest hurry because it is really selling fast.
With tickets found at www.statetheatrecompany.com.au.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That there was Jamie chatting with the director of the State Theatre Company's first production since COVID-19 called Gaslight. The production started over the weekend and is running until the 19th of September, so if you're keen to get along, there's still plenty of opportunities to see it. I think it's really interesting. It's a play from 1938. It's called Gaslight, but to me the term gaslight and the themes seem quite contemporary. I don't really remember people talking about gaslighting one another until a few years ago, really. It just seems like it's more of a modern term, but apparently not.
No, I think it came from a man who was adjusting the gaslight lighting and he was messing around with his wife, and that was part of his ruse on her.
Oh.
So it's kind of old. Are you going to go see the play, David?
I'd love to. I mean, I haven't gotten any free tickets yet, so.
Well, I would go almost just to check out the theatre.
I know, but also this play sounds fantastic.
It does. It sounds great. I was thinking if I had ever been gaslit before, but if I had, I wouldn't know anyway, so who knows?
Seems like a really interesting one. Psychological thriller called Gaslight, based on the 1938 psychological thriller of the same name by Patrick Hamilton. Super excited for that one. Get along if you can. Anyway, coming up, we'll be getting into our lead story for the night from you, Sam, which I am extremely excited about.
But right now, you're listening to Wavelength on Fresh 927.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength with David and Sam tonight, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. So, Sam, you've done some amazing detective work for us this week. And I know the intro of this story really explains why and how you got onto this topic, but could you give us and give me and our listeners a quick brief about this rabbit hole they're about to dive into?
Oh, my God. Sometimes I wish I knew more about the rabbit holes I dive into.
Before you dive into them.
So, I guess soup with these stickers I kept seeing everywhere. I get obsessive and I think about things and I believe that there's a reason for everything that happens and I kind of need to know.
Yeah.
I just need to know.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a good journalism trait, I guess.
It is.
Any quick guesses what soup could have meant?
Absolutely no clue.
Well, there you have it then. You'll have to listen to the story now. Gotcha.
You will have to listen to the story now. Sticker art, street art, graph. It's everywhere in Adelaide and we've got some pretty damn respected artists who do it in the city. Here is Sam commencing his journey into the heart of Adelaide's street art scene.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Okay, I'm going to say a phrase and I want you to think about what it means, okay? Are you ready? Here we go. Soup. That's it. I've spent the last few months wondering about soup. And that phrase, wondering about it, took me all the way to the heart of Adelaide's street art scene. But before we get into that, I should give a bit more background, a bit more information about where I first came across soup. I walk around my neighbourhood a lot and I walk around so much again and again, the same streets, and I started taking more and more notice of the street art around. There's lots of graffiti in my area, lots of posters that have been stuck up, but the main one is sticker art. So it's stickers that artists have made and they just slap them on like light poles or utility boxes or bins or anywhere you can sort of put a sticker. And out of all the stickers I saw, the one I kept seeing was soup, soup, soup. And I would see it everywhere and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so let me explain what it is. It's just simple text, like run-of-the-mill normal text, and it just says the word soup 3 times. Soup, soup, soup. So what do? Like any normal person, I Google it, right? And I guess maybe I'm not that good at Googling because all I could find were links to soup recipes and like local soup kitchens.
No soup for you!
Luckily though, I have friends that are kind of experts at Googling things like this.
My name's James Zubrinich, and I'm a good internet detective because I know how to use the Google search engine because I work in IT.
Like he knows what all of the Google search operators do, like the quotes and plus and minus signs, that sort of thing.
Rather than just search, into Google search, soup, 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 I put quotation marks around it because then it literally searches for that phrase rather than just 3 occurrences of soup. And the first thing that came up was the Harry Potter wiki entry for soup, soup, soup. So I thought that's it, right? Like that's the answer.
Soup, soup, soup was a dish served at the Leaky Cauldron as part of the luncheon menu. The meal cost 5 sickles and appeared on a blackboard in the movie Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. But there's something else you need to know, and it makes the Harry Potter idea a little less likely. Not only are there the soup, soup, soup stickers everywhere, but there are some other ones as well to do with soup. And they're much more direct. In fact, they're almost spooky because one says, soup must die. And there's another one I see around that says, someone kill soup. So now I've got these stickers that just say soup, 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 but also these stickers that have death threats against soup. Someone kill soup. Crazy, right? So I don't think we can rely on the internet to solve this. We have to get out on the street and speak to the artists, the guys that are out there making the stickers.
Well, my name's Tobin. I'm a sticker artist in Adelaide, and I put up illegal stickers around the city. I've put up over 10,000. I've kind of just stopped counting. Like, I've been doing it for about 3 years now.
Tobin. It's a cool name. I have no idea what it means, but it sounds cool.
It's just a name, man. It's what you do with it that counts.
I like that. I like it a lot. So I'm just going to say a phrase to you, and you tell me what it means, what you know about it. Soup, soup, soup.
Soup is another startup artist in the scene, in the sticker scene in Adelaide. If you're referring to the stickers, I think it's just another way to get up. So getting up with street artists is just trying to get your name out as much as possible. And it's kind of this trend of just trying to get to as many places around where you live and around the world, and just show people you're there. Just say, hey, my name's Soup and I'm here. So those ones aren't actually mine. It's definitely another artist. But yeah, I can respect how much they put up stickers. Hopefully they'll develop it into more art in the future.
Okay, so now we know that Soup, Soup, Soup is a person. That's a good lead to go on. And talking to artists seems to be helping. So let's follow that feeling and talk to an even more famous artist.
My name's Peter Drew. I stick up posters on the street. I design those posters and I travel around Australia sticking them up.
Yeah, you've probably seen Peter's work. He is the man behind the Aussie posters, where he took archival images of Australian immigrants and printed the word Aussie underneath. You'd know him if you saw him, trust me. Yeah, so I reached out to you a few weeks ago asking about the Soup, Soup, Soup stickers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any theories or your best guess about what that might be?
Yeah, I to be honest, I hadn't seen them when you got in touch, so I wasn't able to be helpful. But your guess is as good as mine. But the thing is, even that person, like that impulse to sort of like a dog marking its territory for a graffiti artist to write their name a million times over, there's an element of that in what I do as well. I mean, yes, I've put some thought into making a comment about national identity that hopefully other people get something from, and it make marginal communities feel more welcome and find that sense of belonging. But there's also a part of me which is just like the dog marking its territory. Like, I get a real kick out of just the aggression behind it, of having to go out into public space and just see how much of it I can how many posters I can put up. There's a real, that's still there. I think that was there first, to be honest. And the national identity and the commentary that's in there now is more sort of something I added afterwards to give myself an excuse to keep doing something which I sort of enjoy on a selfish level.
I think what Peter was saying is that soup could be anyone. And while that's not a very helpful answer, the good news is, coming up after the break...
I'm Soup. I'm an Adelaide sticker and street artist.
I talk to Soup.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That there was you, Sam, really getting knees deep into Adelaide's sticker and street art scene, chatting with artists like Hobain and Peter Drew. If you've wandered around the CBD literally ever, you're likely to have seen some of their stickers and their poster art before. Good get with Peter Drew. He was, I reckon, one of the first sort of Adelaide street artists that I ever noticed. I remember those sort of pixelated faces with that have like that little smiley face. They were pasted up everywhere when I was a teenager.
They've made a bit of a comeback. They're called Pixel Face is the name of that piece. And Peter Drew actually has an exhibition, Peter Walker Fine Room, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Look it up, Flags, Peter Drew, all his social medias and that sort of thing. I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
Yeah.
The rabbit hole gets a little bit deeper even later on.
I'm very excited to get into that. I mean, we'll be getting back into that very soon. After the break, though, we'll be letting you know what the hell is going on with politics this week. You're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength. We'll be getting back into our story about Adelaide street art scene soon. But right now, Hamish is going to let you know what the hell is going on in politics this week.
What the hell is going on in politics at the
moment? Let's look back at another week of the biggest headlines to make waves in the world of politics. An Australian news anchor on one of the most preeminent news channels in China has been mysteriously detained by authorities and is under surveillance in an undisclosed location. The details surrounding Ms. Cheng Liu's detention are unknown, but many are speculating it may be related to the escalating tension between Australia and China. Ms. Cheng's online profiles have been completely wiped from the network's website, and family say they've lost all contact with the TV personality. Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson officially appointed Tony Abbott as a trade advisor this week, to much controversy and condemnation. The role would see Mr. Abbott help shape post-Brexit Britain trade policy once they leave the European Union. A range of Britain's high-profile politicians and celebrities, including actor Sir Ian McKellen, have come out in protest of the appointment, criticising the former PM for his past comments on abortion, homosexuality and climate change. Also in the news, an inquest into the death of Iranian refugee Omid Masumali has found that the Nauru resident requested to see a psychologist before he set himself on fire in 2016, and that he had a history of depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. Despite his medical history and a number of emergency appointments available, the counselling session wasn't scheduled until days after Omid had already died. Finally, former PM Paul Keating has blasted the coalition for refusing to increase superannuation contributions, and Australia's top cybersecurity agency has reassured the public they are not interested in mass surveillance amid sweeping legislative changes. And that's what the hell's been going on in politics this week.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you for that, Hamish. Stay tuned for part 2 of Sam's story on Adelaide's sticker art scene. I think that's what you can call it, the sticker art scene.
Yeah, sticker art. It deserves its own category as opposed to street art, I guess.
Yeah, as opposed to graffiti.
And postering is probably its own category again.
It's a whole world, right?
Yeah, definitely.
He's going to get to the bottom of the soup mystery, which I'm sure you're all very excited for. But right now, though, you're listening to Fresh 92.7.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Before the break, Sam spoke with some of Adelaide's most prominent street artists like Hobain and Peter Drew in the hope they'd lead him to this enigmatic person called Soup. Sam, how hard was it to find this guy?
Well, it's so frustrating when you can't just Google something these days.
Yeah.
When Google lets you down, what am I supposed to do? Go to the library? Ask my teacher?
How on earth do you even Google that? Like soup, street art, soup, Adelaide street art, something like that?
I don't know. So basically, We're going to hear from him in a sec, but basically via like knowing people who know people who know people who know people. That's how you find a soup in Adelaide, I guess.
That's how you find soup in Adelaide. That, perfect. We're going to jump into that chat right now. I know it's what everyone has been waiting for all evening. Here is Sam's chat with Soup.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Before the break, I was mesmerised by a piece of street art that I kept seeing everywhere called Soup, Soup, Soup. Just a sticker with the word Soup, Soup, Soup written on it. And I went a little bit crazy trying to figure out what it meant and who it was by. Well, after much searching and speaking to other street artists, I did find the Soup, Soup, Soup artist. And so here's Soup.
I'm Soup. I'm an Adelaide sticker and street artist that's been doing it since early this year, and I know that's about it.
So this is the $1 million question now. What does Soup, Soup, Soup mean?
I mean, people think it's more of like a big story than it really is. It's sort of just the paste up that Andy Warhol used to do with the Campbell's tomato soup, but I've just stripped it away to just soup. And that's sort of how it began, and I've sort of just redone it as my own sort of thing whilst giving the credit to Andy Warhol, obviously.
That's as basic as soup can get, I guess.
Yeah, there's not much to it, really.
But why soup 3 times? Why soup, soup, soup instead of just soup?
Oh, just out of pure laziness, really, because I can't be bothered to chop up all the paper that many times, and it does the job, I suppose.
What are you hoping to get out of this then, out of the stickering?
I haven't put that much thought into it really. It's like, I don't know. It's just meant to people just see it and go, oh, what does that mean? What? It's just meant to, you know what I mean? Sort of.
Pretty soon, Soup and I found ourselves walking around as Soup put up stickers on various places. And that's when I remembered the other part of this mystery, and that's the death threats, somebody kills Soup
What about
stickers.
the signs that say someone kills Soup? Have you seen those?
I have. I made them.
Oh, you made them? Why? Yeah. What does that mean?
I don't know. I think that was before I had made any of the other designs apart from the triple soup and tax the church. And I was like, oh, this is sort of getting boring. I should probably make some more stuff. And I now look back at them, even though that was only like 4 months ago, and I go, God, that was awful.
Just put a death threat. I think there was one right around here, I swear, because it just made me think of it. But just put a little death threat out on yourself.
I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I look back at it now and think that's pretty rubbish.
What do you mean rubbish? Why is it rubbish?
Oh, it's just my dodgy handwriting on a sticker. I think I can do better.
Oh, right, gotcha. It's not the concept, it's the execution.
Yeah.
So you're happy with the death threat? It's it's just the execution.
Yeah.
After hanging out with Soup and talking to some other street artists, I learnt that you find the best street art by just looking up.
What I've noticed while talking to friends...
This is the artist Hobain again.
When you're walking through the city, if you just start to look up and actually look above where rooftops are, you'll very definitely start to notice some cool spots. Go down Grenfell Street, down Rundle Mall. If you start looking above buildings, you see that people have spent hours and sometimes days trying to get to the rooftops of these buildings just to paint or just to put up posters.
So that's the where of street art in Adelaide, but what I really wanted to know was the what. And so I asked Peter Drew, what sort of sticker art should a normal person like me make?
We'll do something that makes you laugh, or at least it just gives you a happy feeling. But I guess take into account how people might react when they see it. If you can do something that makes people curious, I mean, the trick is to really do something that, well, you know this yourself, something that makes people go, what is that? Why would somebody write soup 3 times? You know, if you can provoke that curiosity, and then people will ask that question and they'll ask other people. And that's really the aim of the game, is to get people asking the question. See, well, there's an element of that in all my posters. I try not to make them explain themselves too much. You sort of see the poster and go, okay, who did that? Why did they do it? And what does it mean that person's an Aussie? And so it leaves questions. It provokes questions. Whereas if you just put up something that is completely self-explanatory, then it has less of a life after its role on the street.
Street art is open to everyone because anyone can do it. And according to Peter, part of the beauty of street art is that an ordinary person went to the trouble of making something and then going out and sticking it up. And often it involves climbing or parkouring to a tricky or dangerous spot. And so as opposed to advertising or a billboard, Peter Drew says street art is sort of a spectacle of an artist's labour.
The cities that I enjoy visiting and spending time in and spending money in are cities that are a little more interesting than that. Places that use public space as a means of expression. And the cities that you go to around the world that are completely clean and sterile in a way are just not as interesting. And because I want to know what ordinary people think, and I want to see it in the city and not just through advertising or through what the property owners want to display on the side of their buildings. Also want to see what artists want to say in the city. And so there's this whole level of appreciation when you're in a cityscape and you see graffiti and street art. You can see conversations that are going on this other level, and I really enjoy it, and I think a lot of other people do as well.
What street art allows us to see is the personality of the people that live in a city and the personality of the city itself. And so you can learn as much about a city from street art as you can from tourist attractions or landmarks. And so for better or worse, part of Adelaide's personality and identity is soup, soup, soup.
Soup.
Oh, and one more quick thing. I did try and speak to some councils about street art, but all I ever got was this.
Thank you for holding. We understand that your time is valuable and appreciate your patience.
So while technically illegal, for example, Peter Drew has been arrested and fined while putting up posters, street art is an important part of any city. And the good news is you don't even have to be an artist necessarily to enjoy or get the benefit of street art. You can just appreciate it and take notice of it when you're out and about. There's tons in Adelaide, so I encourage you to check it out, even if all you end up doing is spend weeks and weeks thinking about something as silly and fun as soup.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That was Sam actually speaking to Soup. What a triumphant moment for you. I'm keen to know, though, during your expedition to find Soup, what did you learn about sticker art generally and Adelaide's street art scene more broadly?
You know, I've fallen in love with Adelaide's street art scene.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't give it enough credit. I think that Adelaide does have a personality to it in the form of its street art. I think that as opposed to like a Melbourne or something that's probably known for its graffiti.
Yeah,
I'd
definitely.
like to really try and spotlight some of these artists like Hobain.
Yeah.
We've got Peter Drew. He's a really well-known guy.
He is.
So I wonder if we couldn't do more to support those artists.
Yeah.
Even though what they're doing is kind of illegal. I get that.
Well, I mean, Peter Drew's done a pretty good job for himself out of, I guess, doing street art. But someone like Hobain, who I think like popped up for me about a year and a half ago, I just started seeing his stickers everywhere. Like, I'm not kidding, everywhere.
Yeah, 10,000 stickers in 3 years.
That's an insane achievement. Anyway, he's like someone who I see around a lot. And I was sort of like, when you pitched this story to me, I'm like, oh, is he going to talk to Hobain? And then you did. So that was awesome. But I think you're right. I think that we probably should be more proud of them. Like, they bring so much character and life to the city. Of course, it's illegal, not condoning, obviously, illegal activity, but it is so just generally sick to see so many people with all these individual ideas, individual talents, these great designs, just like bring a bit of life to just boring pole or like a box just on the side of the street.
Definitely. And it's a really nice community as well.
Yeah.
So the sticker artists will give each other stickers.
Yeah.
Sometimes Hobain, if he gets sick of putting them up, he'll just start handing them out to people, which I didn't realise, which helps the spread, I guess.
True.
Soup gave me a nice little packet of their stickers as well.
Oh,
so,
sick.
Yeah. Soup. I don't know what you expected. This is
So you have one? You have a soup sticker?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that is probably the best payment you could ever receive for doing this story. You got your very own soup sticker.
That's right.
Where are you going to put it?
I'll put it on my fridge, I think. And then I'll know where to store my soup, I guess.
Soup in the fridge? I guess so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Sam. It was an amazing story, and what a rabbit hole you've gone down. Anyway, next, Wavelength explains everything you need to know about what's happened this week with the coronavirus. But right now, you're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having.
Right now, we're getting into our weekly segment where Wavelength explains what happened with the coronavirus this week.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Hey, it's Arj here with your weekly COVID-19 update. The state's transition committee has announced that they are considering lifting border closures with New South Wales and the ACT within days, while Victorian travel exemptions may be relaxed. Police Commissioner and SA COVID-19 Coordinator Grant Stevens said the community should be proud of its effort in avoiding a second wave, but we shouldn't become complacent. The state government understands that the border closures have severely affected people and communities, but that we can't allow our optimism to cloud our judgment. New South Wales recorded 10 new cases on Sunday, 4 linked to known clusters, 4 from returned overseas travellers who are in hotel quarantine, and 2 still being investigated. SA eased COVID-19 restrictions from midnight on Friday night. Weddings and funerals can now host up to 150 attendees. Restrictions at pubs and bars have also been eased, as they are now able to serve food and drink at the bar. However, there are still bans on drinking and dancing. South Australia recorded no new cases on Sunday, with only 1 active case remaining in the state. Victoria's new cases continue to trend downward, with the state recording 41 new cases and 9 deaths overnight. It follows after the state announced the 4 stages that Victoria will progress through as restrictions are lifted. Stage 4 restrictions are set to remain in place for a further 2 weeks after September 13, the initial end date to those restrictions. Business owners have labelled the extended lockdown as gut-wrenching, with experts fearing the toll it's going to take on people's mental health. In Queensland, 220 staff have been sent into quarantine after a nurse at an Ipswich hospital tested positive for COVID-19. Contact tracing is currently underway on the nurses' movements to see if any further alerts are needed. Chief Health Officer Dr. Yanette Young said she was not concerned about the available PPE or training, but that it's been especially hard on our frontline healthcare workers. And that's your weekly COVID-19 update.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
That was Arj letting you know everything you need to know about the coronavirus this week. You're listening to Fresh 92.7.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength with Sam and David, sparking the conversations about Adelaide you should be having.
It's time for Heaps Good News, the segment where we remind you that there's some great stuff still happening in the world.
Can you believe it?
I know.
This week, Hamish has the stories for us.
I know there's gonna be Heaps Good News on Wavelength.
News. Who else is sick of the news? It's like Kanye said, I got way too many blues for any more bad news. Such wisdom. But it's not all bad, is it? Well, I mean, the overwhelming majority is pretty bad. 2020 has been a straight up dumpster fire. There ain't no way around that one. But here's a couple of stories that should warm your black little hearts. It turns out monogamy is not dead. Yet, anyway. A couple in Ecuador have just made it into the record books for being the world's oldest married couple, a whopping 79 years after they tied the knot. Julio Cesar Mora, aged 110, and Waldramina Maclovia Quintero, aged 104, met before the Second World War and got hitched 7 years later. Since then, the two lovebirds have had 5 children, 11 grandchildren, 21 great-grandchildren, and 9 great-great-grandchildren. So, what's their secret? A deep emotional bond? Weekly date nights? Alcohol? No, they owe their longevity to a winning formula of love, mutual respect, and maturity. Well, you can count me out then. 2020 began its horror run with some of the worst bushfires we've ever seen, and the fire season officially started again this Tuesday.
We're doomed! Doomed, I told you!
Well, maybe not. The Bureau of Meteorology has predicted that there's a 70% chance of La Nina arriving in Australia this year. No, I'm not talking about the hottest Latin dance craze since Zumba, but a weather phenomenon, which is basically the opposite of El Nino, which could result in heavy rainfall, dulling any potential for a repeat of last summer's nightmare, along with much needed relief for our desperate, drought-stricken farmers. But hey, this year has already proven that it doesn't care about our feelings, so touch that wood. Did you do it? I'm serious. Are you touching wood? Okay, good. Meanwhile, in news that's sure to make everyone green with envy, it's festival season! For one small island in Britain, but still. Guernsey has been host to the Vale Earth Fair for the last 44 years, and this year will be no different, as it's been COVID-free for the last 100 days, meaning the fair will go ahead and they won't even have to socially distance. It'll be a good old-fashioned sweat pit. Lucky bastards. And the fact that no international acts can headline the event means the festival has returned to its roots, with the lineup featuring 70 local acts, just like the early iterations of the festival did all those years ago. Even better, promoters are tipping this year's event could be their biggest yet, saying ticket sales haven't been this good in years. While things are pretty tough around the world at the moment, good things are still happening. I promise, they really are. You've just got to look a little bit harder. Okay, a lot harder, but they're there. So make the effort to notice the positive things going on around you, and you might just find yourself surprised.
Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you for that good news, Hamish, and thank you, Adelaide, for listening to us tonight.
Make sure you subscribe to the Wavelength podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or, wherever you get it, whatever app you use. It means you can also listen back to our old episodes right now, and you'll be the first to know when tonight's episode goes up.
That's right. And Sam, thank you so much for joining me this evening. It was so good to have you in the studio finally. And thank you for that excellent deep dive into the Adelaide sticker art scene.
My pleasure. Thank you for sticking with me throughout all of that.
Ha 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 ha. That was... I can't resist a good pun.
Exactly. Yeah. Your one weakness.
If you missed Sam's chat about sticker art, like he said, just jump on the podcasts. They'll be up very soon this week.
Wavelength.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.